In the catchment management team, we work with several farmers in Dorset that are growing maize. This might be to feed dairy cows or for the anaerobic digesters that we see in the county as a feedstock. The issue with maize is that it's quite hard to get a cover crop in after the maize. Where soils are left bare over the winter, that there can be an issue with nitrate leaching. So what we do is we try and help farmers, encourage them to plant cover crops, but also sometimes we need to look at what options are available to them. Maize is harvested later in the year, so it can be sort of mid-September onwards. Some early varieties are now being grown, so it is getting earlier, but the options are more limited because a lot of crops just don't grow as temperatures are decreasing as we go into the autumn. And so what we've done here is to plant different options for farmers so that they can come and look and see what options are available to them in terms of cover cropping after maize. So if we look at this here, we've got some spring barley that's been sown. So farmers might use their own seed that they've saved on the farm to grow these cover crops. This is what I'd expect spring barley to look like at this time of year, so naturally normally wouldn't be sown in the autumn. Tends to look sort of very, very yellowy at this time of year now, and can be a little bit susceptible and challenged over the winter, but this will be sprayed off by most farmers and then will be returned to the soil. So this is spring barley. Another option that farmers have are spring oats, a favourite of mine. Going back to spring barley, we can see it's got sort of more of a sprawling growth habit. The spring oats tend to be much more upright. You can see here they just want to get up and go, aren't really affected too much by low temperatures. Also, they're very good in terms of their root systems at scavenging nitrogen. And the results that I've seen with farmers that have grown spring oats are very positive. Might not want to just grow it on its own, you could perhaps mix it, but because you're growing it after maize, a lot of farmers are growing it as a single species cover crop. If we move on, again, another option for farmers is forage rye. Perhaps haven't got the cover here over the winter, but what it is doing, it's spreading over the ground. So we're very interested in preventing nitrates from leaching, but the cover crops also have other multiple benefits. So they cover the soil, prevent it from erosion. We're in quite a flat field here, but if this was on a slope, we might get soil movement during the winter. And so the cover crops have this beneficial effect of holding that soil together and keeping it in the field, which is a real positive for farmers. So forage rye, good as a cover crop. There can be an issue if you're going to put it back in, return it to the soil in the spring, in the fact that it has what we call a high carbon to nitrogen ratio, so it needs quite a lot of nitrogen to start breaking it down, and in doing that it will actually use up nitrogen in the soil. So it is often sown with vetch, which is a legume, perhaps to help stimulate that process. But alternatively, if you're a livestock farmer, you might want to graze this off, and actually the rye has done fairly well over the winter, but it will really come into its own as it gets into the spring, and it will grow away and then will provide some forage for animals as well. Now, over here we've got a brassica mix, and this is an after maize mix of different brassica species. So in here we've got some forage rape, we've also got some fodder radish, we've got some mustard, we've got a kale hybrid as well. So traditionally this wouldn't be sown after maize because it's getting too late. So brassicas really need to be sown by mid-September. This was actually sown on the 22nd of September. All these plots were sown on the 22nd of September. And we're looking at actually fairly good cover. We've had quite a good mild autumn and winter, and that has enabled this to grow. So this is traditionally something that people haven't grown very much of, but with earlier harvested maize varieties, we're mostly going to see more brassicas being available to grow after maize. The big thing about the brassicas is they're very good and efficient at taking up nitrogen and nitrates, and that will then be returned to the soil for the next crop. If we move on, more traditionally, some of the maize growers may have wanted to put grass in after maize, and that might have been retained then as as grass for grazing or for silage making, but some farmers are just wanting to do it as cover over the winter. So we're looking at different grass options. So this might be available to a farmer then in the spring for grazing or potentially silage making. It depends on the system. So this is a after maize grass mix, which actually does have some perennial ryegrass in it. So I think what we've seen with this, it's provided very good cover but slightly slower growing than some of the other grass species that we've got here. We look at this plot, we've got some Westerwolds ryegrass growing. So Westerwolds have got very good growth, so they're very short-lived grass, just wants to grow, can be frost susceptible in a very hard frost situation, but with the mild winters that we've had in Dorset, seems to grow very well. And our experience is that Westerwolds do very well after maize. It provides you with a good grass cover in the spring as well, so you might have the option there to graze with animals, possibly make silage. We're in a situation this year where people are very short of forage stocks and are actually looking to utilise grass for silage. So this is the Westerwolds ryegrass. We've then got 2 plots of Italian ryegrass here, just 2 different varieties. I would say the Westerwolds has done better than the Italian ryegrass, and I think we do see that the Westerwolds tends to grow very well, but equally so we've got the Italian ryegrass, which provides good cover. We talk about the stability within the soil, and again, if you wanted some grass for your livestock, this might be another option where you've got a bit of a spring bite to provide them with some grazing, or possibly again, if it suits, you could make some silage from the grass that's been put in over the winter. Most of this field is going to go back into maize again, so these cover crops will be destroyed, and then a maize crop will go in the spring.